I didn't have a good strategy. I didn't have a good team. I didn't have the expertise in my favor. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. Hope you're doing well and hope the year is going well so far. So one of the things that I want to talk about, I get a lot of these questions, a lot of different questions from coaching clients that I have. And one of them that is pretty frequent, especially when we just kind of first start engagement, is like, what should I be buying? And I hear that from new investors too. They're just trying to get in the game. They just want to understand like what to buy and why to buy something. And the other thing too is I see beyond that question is just investors, especially newer investors, but this even happens to investors who've been in the business for a little while, is just get excited about just doing deals and they don't care what that looks like. They just want the best deal. I want to get the best deal. And they're looking for the home run. They're looking for the best. And they end up getting a lot of times into a deal that's not good. And sometimes they get lucky and sometimes it's a fantastic deal and everything goes well, but more often than not, it's just the opposite, right? Things go so wrong, and they got this great deal because it was a great price. A perfect example, like so for like, look, when I first started in the business, I wasn't that well thought out. I had a strategy, at least I had a strategy, right? I knew what I was looking for, and had a base understanding of what it would take to be profitable, but I still could have taken a deeper dive and really thought about what made the most amount of sense. And actually, as I reflect back, I look at the assets that I bought, and don't get me wrong, I did really well. Profited on really everything I bought, and did well. Learned a ton. Quite frankly, learned a lot about what I like and don't like through that, and made plenty of mistakes along the way. But one of the things as I reflect back, I was buying these C class properties in kind of fringe zones. I never bought in really the worst of the worst areas, but I definitely bought some fringy type areas. Um, and what I figured out is that the appreciation in the good areas ended up being a lot greater, and the cash flow in the good areas ended up being a lot greater and going up a lot quicker, right? And same thing with the appreciation going up a lot quicker. So, uh, bought a property in C class, C minus area, cash flowing, $600 a month. On paper, it's, you know, look, it's $900 a month on paper, 600 $600 in reality. And buy it, I'm all in at, $70,000. Had I bought that property in the neighborhood for $120,000, been all in at $150,000. My cash flow, although it wouldn't have looked quite as good on paper, maybe a cash flow on paper would have been, 700 versus 900, but in reality, it would have actually been 700 versus the maybe 600 that I was getting in the worst area. And in reality, in the worst area, I would have evictions every once in a while. I would have a tenant trash the place every once in a while. So really, that 500 probably was more like 300 or 400. Where in the better neighborhood, it probably would have been closer to, you know, the actual pro forma. Now, don't worry, I'm not talking about today. This is back during the great financial crisis where prices were super cheap. So if you're like, where's he finding these crazy deals on these properties? That was a long time ago. Those properties now, that deal is long gone, right? The cheap ones that I was talking about, those are going for, 275, 300. But the nicer properties, so I could have been all in at 150 for the nicer property. Maybe it's 175, maybe it's even 200. But that property now is worth 450, 500, maybe even more, depends on the neighborhood, $600,000, $700,000. The appreciation was massive. The rent growth was very good too. So where my C class property, I'm renting a 4 bedroom, let's call it, for 1,400, and now that same 4 bedroom rents for $2,000. Well, in the better neighborhood, I was renting for, let's call it, 15, maybe 1,600. Well, now it's going for $3,000. So my rent growth was way better too. So, all right, let's go back. What I want to talk about is buying the right property. I'm a big fan of buying pretty properties. I used to not be. I used to think we don't want to buy good looking properties. They're just going to go for way too much money. Just doesn't make sense. But here's the deal. They do go for more. They sell for more, but they end up being better properties in the end. And here's why. People like pretty things. It's just how it is. People like pretty things. They want to buy that beautiful, shiny building. They want to, and even if they think they're being financial, we're being financially sound, they want to buy that new, shiny object. People want to rent the new, shiny object. So here's what I look for. I'm looking for, of course, the fundamentals. I want cash flow. I want a good location. I want good financing, right? I want all those things, but I'm also looking for pretty properties with beautiful amenities and with things that aren't obsolete or odd things. So if I'm buying a property in a good area and all the other properties around are beautiful properties as well, or most of them at least, beautiful properties as well, and they have a pool. I want to have a pool. If they have a fitness center, I need a fitness center, right? If they have whatever, any other amenities, I want to have those amenities. If they have washer and dryers in unit, I need that. I want washer and dryers in unit, or I need to at least be able to add them. Okay, so those are the things I want to do. Now, I'm not saying don't buy a property without washer and dryers, but understand that's really what people want: washer and dryers in their unit. They don't want to go to the laundry room anymore. It's just how it is. And so if you're going to buy the property without the washer and dryer, that's okay, but understand your resident base. Understand who you're getting. It's rent by necessity. It's people that can't afford a unit with a washer and dryer. So, are you going to get higher delinquency rates? Yes. Are you going to get higher vacancy rates? Yes. Are you going to have more evictions? Yes. It's just how it is. Not saying it's wrong, but you need to plan for it. You need to understand that. Are you going to have a little bit harder time renting those units? The answer might be actually no, if your rents are low enough and attracting that type of resident in that type of area. So it can be okay, but you need to know what you're attracting. Understand that pretty properties attract people. It's just how it is. People like beautiful things. So we want properties that we can make pretty. We don't like buying properties that are already pretty, but we like properties that we can make beautiful, that we can have the bells and whistles. We want the dog park. We want the sport court. We want the gym. We want the pool. We want those things so that we can attract residents that are excited to be at the property and can feel proud about being at the property. That's what we want. The newer, the better. Okay. These are the things that I've learned as I've gone and made mistakes, right? And bought the ugly property, bought the bad neighborhood. I got a 20 unit building that I purchased in Cincinnati, Ohio. Terrible neighborhood. I would never buy that building again. I ended up making a few bucks on it, but didn't do well because I bought it in a terrible neighborhood. Didn't have the right team in place, didn't have the right expertise, all that kind of stuff. As I talk to people that are beginning, and I think back about me beginning, again, we go for the cheap property. That property was $10,000 per unit. I had to stick another $10,000 a unit into renovations, so it's 20 grand all in. Maybe at 15. Okay, so it's 25 grand all in. How do you go wrong with it? Well, how do you go wrong with it is you don't manage the property properly. Okay. I was an out of state buyer. I had poor property management. I had poor contractors, right? We renovated units. Everything worked out. Ended up firing the property management company. I probably shouldn't have fired that one, but they're just really bad at doing the books, really frustrating to deal with. They knew how to manage. That was it. Probably should have kept them, but I wanted better. So I fired them, hired worse. Fired them, hired worse. Fired them, finally hired better. But it was so late that I already had to renovate the units several times, re-renovate units because I went from 90% occupancy down to, 20% occupancy, up to 30, down to 20, up to 50, down to 20. And I had to renovate and renovate and renovate. And finally, when I was got the property back up to good occupancy, I sold it. It was done. I had to get rid of it. But it was because I didn't have a good strategy. I didn't have a good team. I didn't have the expertise in my favor. Okay. Made a couple bucks because it was a lot of grinding and a lot of hard work. But man, it wasn't worth it other than the lessons I learned. Right. So the lessons I learned on that property, understand and know your strategy. You got to know what you want. You have to know what you're looking for in a property and you have to stick with it. Right. It's like going out and buying a car. If you're like, hey, I want to buy a car and I want to get a good deal. How do you know when a good deal comes up? Right. You're going to end up with a Ford Escort, not with the cherry red Corvette. Because you don't know when the cherry red Corvette is a good deal unless you actually identify, I want a 1975 Corvette Stingray, right? And then you start looking for those. And you're looking every day for the 1975 Corvette Stingray, and you keep on seeing different prices. And then finally, all of a sudden, that one car comes up. It's in mint condition, cherry red, beautiful. And you're like, this thing's going for 40% under market price. I need to buy. Okay. It's the same deal with an apartment building, with any commercial real estate. You have no clue if you're getting a good deal or an okay deal or a bad deal unless you are truly understand what that property is, what the location is, what the strategy is, right? All those types of things. So you need to understand what you are purchasing. You need to know what your criteria is. Get clarity on that. So are you buying, call it 10 to 20 unit buildings built in 1980 and newer with a value add, physical value add, where we can do a light renovation, blah, 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 right? We did some really, really deep value add properties with some mid-rise buildings out of state. And you know what? Guess what? It was out of probably our area of expertise. The strategy wasn't the best. Difficult projects to deal with because we're trying to do something that we maybe weren't the best equipped for. So understand your strategy. The next thing is know your team. If you don't have a good team, you're not going to succeed. Look, we had a call just yesterday with a property management company, and we were talking about them taking over some of our assets. And they manage assets that are 150 units and bigger. That's their bread and butter, 150 plus. Well, some of the assets that we looked at them taking over were much less than that, about 100 units. And it didn't fit. They had this clarity in what actually fits them, and that did not fit them. And so that's not a good team. But if let's just say you're wishy-washy and don't know what you got, but you got a great property management company, and you go out and buy a 50 unit building and go to that property management company and go, here's my 50 unit building, I'd like you to take over. And they go, we don't manage that. Now you got to go find a property management company. Now you don't have the right team, right? And trying to stuff that company into our property doesn't make sense because they're not the right team. So make sure you got the right property management company, make sure you got the right contractors in place, make sure you got the right leasing people, all that kind of stuff. The right team is going to be huge. Okay. It doesn't matter how good of a property you have, doesn't matter the location, or none of that. If you don't have the right team, you're not going to be successful with the right expertise, right? So they understand what they're doing. Look, you're not going to go out and buy low income housing tax credit building if you have zero experience in that and nobody on your team has experience in that. That'd be crazy. You wouldn't do well. And if you did, it's because you got lucky, right? So buy what you have expertise in. That's a great strategy for the right people, right? I know I've got a few friends that do low income tax credits and they crush it. They do extremely well. That's because it's their area of expertise. It's not mine. They're good at Section 8. They're good at whatever. Same token, like if you took that person that's really good at low income tax credit and you gave them an A-class market rate building, they wouldn't do well on it. They don't know how to talk with those residents. They don't know what those residents expect. They just wouldn't do well with that type of asset. Those people expect different things. And you're not an expert in that. So don't go and buy it if you're a low income housing tax person, right? Doesn't make sense. And then the last thing is understand your risk tolerance. Okay. Every deal has a different risk profile. So if you're looking for something that's low risk, we're looking for a cash flow, right? We're looking for something that's in a good neighborhood, newer asset, not a ton of deferred maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So understand your risk tolerance, what you want to do. There's a lot of different ways to make money, and every property is, well, I shouldn't say every property. There's some properties that are just crap and just don't even think about buying them. But most properties, there's a buyer for. And most properties, it's suitable for somebody. But it doesn't mean that every property is suitable for you. So no one understand your strategy. No one understand the type of properties that work for you. We have our preference for our reasons, and we have to stick with those properties. You need to create your own preference for your own reasons, the reasons I talked about, and stick with those. You become an expert in them and you do those better than everybody else. That's the key, right? You want to do it better than everybody else. A low income tax credit person is going to do an excellent job if they focus on that and do it extremely well. But if they're buying low income tax and then they're buying luxury apartments and then they're buying B class and then they're buying all kinds of other stuff, they're just not going to do well in it. Unless, of course, they build their teams out and grow. But that's different. We're talking a big established company that can have kind of branches, right? But they have people within those branches that are area expertise. They've got a low income tax department, right? They've got a luxury housing department. So it's different. When we bring on different assets into our portfolio, we're usually teaming with people that have high amount of expertise in that. We're not just taking that on and assuming we're experts from day one. So yeah, focus on what the best is for you. There's no best for any one person, or for everyone, I should say. There's no best for everyone. It all depends on what you're looking for. Hope this helps. You have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day Saturday. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out. And we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.